Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of We Are Next. We Are Next is an initiative of Next Niagara, where we spotlight and celebrate young professionals who are making a big impact in our community. Today, I'm proud to be joined by Christopher Yendt. Chris, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Chris, let's just jump into it. Can you tell me a bit about who you are and what you do?
My name is Christopher Yendt. I'm a graduate student at Brock University in St. Catharines in the Niagara region. I did 2 previous degrees at the university, a Bachelor of Arts and then a Bachelor of Education, Teacher Education. I also serve as the president of the Graduate Student Association at the university, and I've been reelected to a subsequent term, so coming back, spent quite a lot of time at the university, and in a number of different facets, been involved in student life, but also involved in the community on a number of different boards, which we might talk about a little bit today, and an accidental Niagara transplant, I guess, is the best way to describe me.
Let's talk a bit more about the Graduate Student Association. What is the mission of that group?
So the mission of the group is to represent all graduate students at the university, their interests and needs as they pertain to graduate studies, making sure that the voice of our roughly 2,000 students is not lost in conversations with senior administrators, faculty, or other units around campus, noting that our population is only 2,000 students or so, which is pales in comparison to that of the 18,000 or so undergrads at the university. And often what we find in part of grad student culture as a whole is that graduate students don't have the same collective voice as undergrads do by virtue of their smaller size. And so we really exist to make sure that graduate students have a say in issues that will impact them the most and make sure that no one forgets about their needs, particularly in difficult situations, but also recognizing the quite complex relationships that graduate students have on university campuses.
What specific challenges does a graduate student face that you guys would deal with?
So some of the big, there are a lot, but my immediate recall is to some of the stuff that has gone on with COVID-19 and the impacts that that's had on the university campus and on campus life. And so one of the big ones is around the change which many universities have done to offering students the opportunity for a pass-fail, credit-no credit model to close out the courses from this term. And so basically what this means is if you were in the middle of a course and your mark took a significant hit because COVID-19, things moved online, everything was disrupted, what have you, you have the opportunity to replace that mark with either a credit, no credit. So basically, if the mark was 51 and you're like, wow, I did not want to have a 51 on my transcript, I could take the credit and then no one would know what the mark was that I got. I just get the credit for the course. And then the other way around, you could just take a no credit, no one would know that you got a 40 or a 20 or something like that. And while this looks really positive on the surface, what we've done is a lot of advocacy to make sure that our members understand that there are much farther, broader reaching impacts to a choice like this that no one is really super sure of yet. So a great example would be the tri-funding agencies, so NSERC, SSHRC, and CIHR, as well as the Ontario Graduate Scholarship, all require you to maintain a specific average across a specific number of courses in order to qualify for the scholarship. If you take a credit, no credit, what you've done is you've taken that credit out of the group that will be qualifying for the average in order to get the scholarship or the award. And in many cases in grad studies, you wouldn't have enough credits otherwise to still qualify, which means you, by taking the credit, no credit, you disqualify yourself from being eligible for funding. There's one example. We've certainly been in conversation with the university on, in some cases, a daily basis, some cases a weekly basis, depending on the administrator, around issues like funding for graduate students. So now that this has all been disrupted, will funding timelines be increased? What about access to the emergency student bursary, which the GSA has contributed $15,000 towards? What about spring convocation and graduation? In general, that's the kind of work that we do behind the scenes to make sure that essentially student rights aren't trampled on.
What is the atmosphere like right now?
At this point, I think there's a general nervousness among the whole of the student population, which is just how am I going to continue to afford tuition in any way, shape, or form if there isn't some form of substantial relief? We've seen the couple of benefit programs that have come from the federal government, both CERB and the now presented, not yet passed through Parliament, CESB, but many of those are not as comprehensive as we might like them to be. And so the hope is, and my push through all of my channels, and I know it's been reciprocated through other channels as well, is that the government in Ontario will recognize there's a need to actually inject money into the whole of the post-secondary education system to support your universities and colleges in getting through this particularly tough period.
I'd appreciate if you could reflect back a bit since your time as a freshman when you first started your post-secondary education. How has the student experience evolved?
Students are going to start to be more and more nervous if you're asking me to compare, when I started versus now. New students are now going to start having to move into a space which is very much, these are the programs that are going to be offered to you, instead of getting to select the program that you might want or the thing that you might want to pursue in your life, and you might just have to take X program because it's all that's offered at this particular university anymore, and you can't afford to move away from home to go to study. And so I will stay local to Niagara because I was born and raised in Niagara. I will go to the university and I will take what program I can, even though it's not the one that I want. And so I think that's going to have particularly devastating long-term impacts on students as they get into a field and profession that they don't really enjoy, and then 2 decades later go, this was awful, this is awful, this isn't what I wanted to do. And I don't think that was ever in my mind. A little bit tough to judge that piece, but I think that the trepidation and nervousness in entering the job market, not understanding what that world looks like, and not feeling as though their education may be as supportive as they would like, is probably the biggest thing I think in change that a student might see now versus 10 years ago.
So we've talked a bit about your experience with the Graduate Student Association. We've talked about your involvement with CMHA, and just kind of as a high level question is, why do you get involved? Why do you care?
I wanted to feel as though a difference could be made for some of the issues that people closest to me were seeing. So it wasn't as systemic, it wasn't as broadly focused or strategic. It was, hey, I've got a group of friends, this bus is too full for them to get on the bus every morning to get to class on time, and this is a real inconvenience for them. Can anything be done to fix it? Those levels of things drove me as a fixer. Can I improve fundamental system experiences at a ground level? And then it was those sorts of individual passion projects that I would get aligned to, which would keep driving my need to be involved and my want to try and do things to improve other people's experiences. And so that drove me to get involved in student government in the first place, which drove me to writing policy papers at a provincial facing level with some lobbying organizations, deeper involved in student government, deeper involved in advocacy. And then it kept going. And for me, advocacy is an absolute drug. It gives you such a sense of overwhelming positive gratitude for the work that you do.
Well, Chris, on behalf of Next Niagara, I just want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. And on behalf of everyone in Niagara, we appreciate your contribution to our community. You are a terrific role model, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. So that wraps up the episode of We Are Next. We hope to see you in the next episode. If you'd like to nominate somebody or volunteer yourself, please feel free to include it in the comments below. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.